Welcome to the Pre to Post Transplant Podcast, a podcast that brings personal stories from transplant survivors, their families, friends, and loved ones. This is where you will hear challenges and triumphs of everyone involved in this journey. Our guests will offer wisdom, advice, and inspiration on everything you want to know about transplant. My name is Jenny McFarland. I am a transplant survivor, and this is a podcast I wish I had before and immediately following my transplant. Thank you for listening. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Pre to Post Transplant Podcast. This is Jenny McFarland, your host, and I am super excited for today's episode. Of course, I'm always super excited. It's been a minute since I've had an episode, and that's mostly because I just haven't had a guest come on. So I am looking for more guests to come on the podcast. So if you want to come on and share your story, or you know somebody who has a great story that you think we would all be interested in hearing, then you can just let me know by signing onto the website, and you can leave me a message on the website, which is www.pretoposttx.com. And also, I just want to quickly remind you guys to leave a rating and review for the podcast. That's going to help other people find the podcast who are out searching for transplant stuff. So leave a rating and review whenever you get a chance. And I'm just going to jump into today's episode just because I'm super excited for it. I got to talk to a lovely, lovely person who today, if you're listening to this in real time on June 14th, 2023, today is her 27th transplant anniversary of her heart and lung. So it's so inspirational. I just love talking to people who have been around for so many years to tell their story because, you know, whenever I was going through my transplant evaluation, for a lung transplant, their statistics were 5 years. And I'm not really one to listen to that. I never really have. But, you know, I'm going to be coming up on my 5-year transplant anniversary in September of this year. And so even though I know that it, you know, don't listen to the statistics, it's always in the back of my mind. You know, my 5 years are coming up. And so I know it's kind of dumb, but it's just, you know, it's back there. So that's why I love talking to people who have so many years under their belt of having their original transplanted organ. I think it's amazing. And I think you guys are going to think it's amazing too. So I'm just going to jump in so we can listen to it and let me know what you think. Like, tell me where you are in your transplant, how you felt at your mark where the doctors were like, this is how many years you have statistically. And, you know, I want to hear comments. I want to hear what you think about this episode. So you can leave them on my Facebook postings or Instagram, or just send me a message off the website. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and jump in and let you listen to this incredible episode with Kimberly Jacques. Hi, Kim. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here.
Hi, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
You're welcome. So what I like to start out with is by asking my guests when they had their transplant, where they had it, and why they needed one.
Okay, when was June 14th of 96, so almost 27 years ago. Where was at St. Louis Children's Hospital in St. Louis, Missouri.
Okay.
And why? I'll try to tell you the Cliff Notes version, but if we need to go to the extended edition,
Okay.
rendition,
All right.
that's fine. Pulmonary hypertension.
Okay.
That's the Cliff Notes version. The reason why I needed both heart and lungs, just because it's not a common transplant you hear about every day.
Yeah.
In my case, I had holes in my heart, 2 big ones and a bunch of little ones. Those holes happened or formed at the moment of my conception.
Simply. Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah. Out of all the ones that had to be made, it was me. At the heart goes. And so I had them right from the get-go. And like a cancer, it spread to my lungs.
Okay.
I ended up being born more than 10 weeks early,
Wow.
uh, 'cause I was just losing oxygen in the room. This is one of those things where I was like, nobody's fault or anything, it just
Yes.
happened.
You're just the lucky one, right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's that yeah, that's what happened.
Wow. So how old were you when you had your transplants?
I was 16 years old.
16. So for the first 16 years of your life, you had to deal with a bunch of medical issues with your heart.
Well, here's the funny thing. Um, I was born in New England in Boston, but we moved to Florida when I was almost 5. So growing up, I always knew I was sick, but I never knew I was that sick.
Okay. Yeah.
Like the word transplant never entered my vocabulary at all. I mean, I was being a pretty typical 80s kid because I think we were born around the same time. I think we're close in age.
Yeah.
Um,
I was born in 79.
80.
Yeah.
So yeah, so a pretty typical 80s childhood, like getting up early Saturday morning, to watch cartoons. I totally had the schedule memorized, all
Yeah.
that stuff. I remember, getting in trouble for locking my sister in the hall closet again. I was very active in the Girl Scouts, and yes, I sold the cookies. I remember either spending the night at a friend's house or somebody would spend the night at my house. There were like certain signs and everything that I realized now. I'm like, oh, okay. Like by the time I was in 3rd grade, I could only do half of PE, and by 5th grade, I had to stop doing PE. But it just never occurred to me or anything because I was still active. Like I liked playing outside in the backyard. I liked playing on
Yeah.
the swing set that I nearly destroyed with a friend by turning it into a mudslide. I mean, I was just a very mischievous, normal-ish kid, and the ish is kind of important because, of course, I was never, normal. I'm gonna use that word in quotation, of course, because,
Yeah.
what is normal?
Right.
Because I started seeing a heart doctor every year when I was 5. It wasn't until I was 10 that I realized, oh, wait, not every kid, sees a heart doctor every year.
Yeah.
Because that's how normal of an upbringing my parents tried to do. Like I was mischievous. I made the honor roll. I accidentally gave my entire 2nd grade class chicken pox right before winter break. You get the idea. It was,
Yeah. Yeah.
I got in trouble for cutting off Barbie's hair for the millionth time. Uh,
Yeah. Yeah. I can relate to that. I mean, I was the same. My mom made sure that I wasn't at home being sick. She made me go
yeah,
outside and
yeah,
play and
treat me as normally as possible. I'm still in touch with childhood friends and everything like
yeah.
that. So, in in my case, I found out actually by accident, how sick I was when I was 14. And you mentioned the mental part and everything that did do a number, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
So I was 14, as I mentioned, it was literally the first day of summer vacation. And I very innocently thought that I was just gonna go and have my usual annual, and that was gonna be it.
Yeah.
That's not what happened. My usual cardiologist wasn't in that day, so we had someone filling in. Okay, fine. But with the introduction barely out of the way, he says to my dad and me that he had just gone over the results of my echocardiogram. Let's talk transplant centers. And in my head, I remember screaming, "Trans what?"
Yeah.
I had no idea. He just simply just
Well,
dropped a
did you
bomb on me.
know did you know that you had, like, the holes and stuff, or you had no idea? Oh, okay. So they just didn't tell you at all.
Nothing. Like I knew something, but I didn't know the whole
Right. Okay.
scope of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that happened. And that just was it. Just, I mean, timing is never going to be perfect, but I think what hurt most was the fact that it didn't come from my parents.
Yeah.
Came from somebody I had literally just met
Yeah.
in person. So,
Yeah. Did they tell you why they didn't tell you? Was it just because they didn't want you to worry about it? Or
um, basically they didn't tell me because they just didn't want to like overwhelm me with the knowledge. But on the flip side, at least this is my opinion. Because the way found out, it sped up
yeah.
the decline in my health, and as you can imagine.
Oh yeah. I get that. Like I think that I've always thought that your mind is stronger than your body. So like if you're thinking about these problems now, then you're going to notice everything and it's just going to get worse. And
It's going to be in the forefront of your
yeah,
mind like all
for
the
sure.
time. Like
For
even like
sure.
looking back, like comparing it to spring of '94, like walking around the hallway and everything, I'd be tired, but it never occurred to me, why or whatever. To September or December of '94, I walk into classes in ninth grade and I'm wiped out like more than I had before.
Yeah.
And on top of that, that December of '94, 6 months later, is when we went for my whole evaluation.
Wow. See, it's a short time to
Yeah,
prepare for what was happening. Yeah, that's
yeah.
gotta be hard, I'm sure.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think that would probably be hard, but on the flip side, you got all those years where you weren't even worrying about it, so you were able to live a somewhat
Yeah,
normal childhood.
yeah.
So I guess it's like positive and negative and on both
Yeah,
sides,
it's one of
you know?
those
Yeah.
where, like, for a lot of recipients, they have a pre-transplant and a post-transplant. But for
Yeah.
me, I have this weird section in the middle
Yeah.
between the ages of 14 to 16. I was just,
Yeah. And you're a
it
teenager on
was
top of that.
odd, it was weird, it was strange, it was not easy.
Yeah.
Um, because being a teenager is hard enough as it is.
Yeah.
Adding transplant on
Yeah.
top of all that.
Yeah, I couldn't imagine that. I couldn't imagine.
None, I could not relate to my peers at
Yeah.
all. I mean, I don't know what high school was like for you, but but
Wasn't
for
good. It wasn't good
yeah,
for
it,
me
it
anyway.
wasn't.
Wasn't good for me anyway. I
Yeah,
hated I hated high school.
right. Because for me, when I first started ninth grade, and people would ask me and everything, like, "How was your summer?" I couldn't exactly respond by saying that I'd suddenly found out that I was a walking time bomb. Like, no, you can't do that at 14 because I was having to
Yeah.
process everything I had gone through. And then by that spell 95, I physically couldn't go to school anymore. So I was taken out.
Yeah.
That whole 10th grade did not exist. So I had to repeat it, come back to school summer, September of '96. What'd you do this summer? I again cannot say to people that I suddenly had my chest cavity cut open and a last ditch effort
Yeah.
to have my life be saved because most teenagers are waiting for cars or their driver's license, not body parts to arrive. And
Right.
it, I, the way that I describe it is that I was so envious because they had what I thought my peers, they had the luxury to be so carefree.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to do that.
Yeah.
Nope, you don't know how to do that. And it took me a long time to figure that out, to accept it. Like, okay, it sucked. That's it. I did try to live vicariously through my sisters, but they were not thrilled. So they called me to back off real quick.
That's
um,
funny.
yeah. So, but
So
I've had therapy off and on because people might be wondering.
so during those 2 years after you found out and you finally got your transplant, like, you already mentioned a little bit about how it was, being envious of your peers and stuff, but like, how was it health-wise? Like, were you just sick all the time, or you didn't feel good? Like, were you still going to school, like, homeschool, or did you stop
Um,
completely?
I went to school starting in, we're in Florida and everything, so we started in August. I started school August of 94, and I went all the way through December, January, but by spring break or so, I just couldn't do it. Looking back, there are so many things we could have and should have done differently, and like a little requests to be made and everything to make it easier, but we didn't realize it at the time. So by spring break, I stopped going to school in the county that I grew up in Tampa. Back then, I don't know how it is now. I can't say, but
Yeah.
back then, in order to have a tutor come to your home, you had to have either a parent or legal guardian there with you. And since both my parents worked, that wasn't going to happen. So we had to do teleclasses over the phone. Remember, this is like right when the
Yeah.
internet is brand new. You're not
Yeah.
going to have online classes. And and so also, after I had my evaluation and everything, St. Louis had never had a patient with my health issues. So I was basically treated like a guinea pig.
Hmm.
So they had me come in every 6 months to see how my illness was progressing in terms of its decline. In December 94, had the evaluation that I placed on the list in January. Okay, come back 6 months. June 95. That's um that's when my parents and I met the surgeon. And in fact, we happened to meet him almost exactly on the day of when I would get my transplant.
Yeah.
Um, which is yeah, we didn't plan that. Um, 6 months later, come back 6 months later. Okay, fine. December 95. We need to speed things up a little bit.
Yeah.
They first wanted me there in January, and my parents were like, "Can you wait until April?" Because not known to me at the time, they were planning this big surprise sweet 16 party for me.
Hmm.
I didn't want that to get ruined for
Yeah.
my birthday in January. So dad had a little negotiation with the doctors. They said yes. We got there in April 96. By early 96, by January 96, I required more than 12 hours of sleep a day. I would often sleep right through the phone calls for my classes. Um,
Oh, yeah.
Not to be a jerk or anything, I just did not have the energy at all.
Yeah.
And also during that time, we also moved out of my childhood house. So I should put a lot of stuff
Yeah.
on top of it. Um, and like I said, by April 96, we moved to St. Louis to wait. My sisters had to be pulled out of school, that sort of thing. My dad's work had to be sent to him to St. Louis. And almost exactly 2 months later, I got the call.
Wow.
Almost exactly.
Yeah. So you moved to St. Louis because that's where the hospital was.
Yeah, we were just too far geographically
So did you
to wait
you
in
moved to
Tampa.
stay there, or did you just move there to get your transplant and then you were planning to move back, or did you end up staying?
We ended up just going there for the transplant, to wait for the
Okay.
transplant,
Okay.
recover, then head back home to Florida.
Yeah. Okay. So you finally got the call. We're ready for you. How'd that go? How'd the surgery go? How did everything go?
That went great. I mean, just by I'm not just by some serious divine intervention, there were a lot of kids around my age at that hospital at the time, either waiting for or recovering from their lung transplants. And
Uh-huh.
the doctors heavily encouraged us to interact. You know, we came from Florida, one came from Mississippi, another came from Rhode Island, another came from Indiana. They're like, okay, since you guys are being pulled from your communities and everything, why don't you all form your own? That helped, I think, a lot.
Yeah.
I wasn't as nervous.
Mhm.
Um, the night I got the call, was just, there were a couple of just like, it was just like the stars were aligned kind of moments. Um, like we had this bag that was, prepped, like say like for a hospital bag,
Yeah.
we had our own hospital bag prepped.
Yeah.
Daddy and my dad kept on like bumping into it in the closet, and he just kept on bumping into it so much that he just took the bag and tossed it into the van. We would have never been able to get that bag from the apartment, if we had left it there, because
Uh-huh.
we would just go. And the reason why I mentioned the community is because every time somebody was planning on going home, we would throw them a going away party.
Okay. Yeah.
So that night was the party for Jennifer. She passed away. Um, we went to, I want to say Outback, but I know that's wrong. It was Lone Star.
Okay.
Went to Lone Star. I don't know why, but like I know it's Lone Star, but my brain's just Outback. I'm like, it's not
Yeah.
West. Went to Lone Star. I remember, um, I think they already had me on prednisone because the appetite was already starting to increase.
Mhm.
So I had a stack of ribs, fries, and my Sprite. And I had most of the ribs and the fries and some of the drink. And I would not have been able to. I mean, I'm glad I had that big meal when I did, because I would not have been able to had anything else for a while.
Yeah.
So I went to Lone Star. Then we went to Swing Around Fun Town, which had like bumper boats, go karts, like arcade games to win tickets,
Yeah.
that sort of thing. You get the idea. And um, my sisters wanted to go on the go kart, and of course I missed the requirement by inches because of course I did.
Yeah.
Um, Jennifer's family wanted to get a picture of the five of us together for their scrapbook they were making. My sister never got that second turn on the go karts, and that picture was never taken for Jennifer's family
Oh.
because I got the call.
Yeah.
Because my dad had the beeper, very 90s, had the
Yeah.
the pager,
Pager.
and I was the only one who heard it. Since I was sitting down on a bench, I was ear level to the beeper that my dad had clipped to his waist.
Uh-huh.
He ignored it. He thought it was like the game's going off inside, or he didn't think it was us.
Yeah.
I'm like, Dad, isn't that the beeper? He's like, oh yeah. Lord, I got up and I started running like Forrest Gump. And my dad had to yell at me, stop. And I was like, so excited. And my dad said, calm down. Let me call the hospital to see if this is for real. And so, he went to the payphone. My mom and youngest sister, who was 8 at the time, started crying. My first sister, who was 12 at the time, she's very much dad's daughter, and she was trying to assess the situation. And yours truly, I will admit that I was the kind of person who would like laugh inappropriately. I was laughing like a hyena that night. You can imagine. It's one of those like real awkward, weird
Yeah.
moment kind of things.
Uh-huh.
And I'm sure everybody who was there at that place that night that was not part of our group was like, what the blank is going on? Like, they're just staring at us like, why? Like,
Yeah.
um, Dad got hold of somebody and said, yeah, this is it. This is the real thing so far. We got in the van. I took Dad's, clunky cell phone and everything. And I called my Nana, called my auntie, spoke to them, and I called my grandpa, but he didn't answer, so I left a voice message. And I remember at one point, I was all scared. I was all nervous and everything. My dad assured me he assured me that God would not have allowed this to happen if he didn't think this was the right call.
Yeah.
And that calmed me down. Um, I mean, and we pulled up the hospital at the perfect time because if we had gone there like a moment later, we would have had to go through like the ER
Yeah.
entrance rather than front entrance.
Yeah.
When we got there, my mom started running around like we had no idea where to go. Eventually, someone pointed us in the right direction,
Mhm.
got me a wheelchair. They were taking me up to 7th floor to prep, and I remember two nurses exited the elevator, and my mom told them that I got paged for the transplant and everything, and they wished me good luck.
Mhm.
Um, got there, 7th floor, got my hospital gown and everything. They knew that I was going to be hard stick, so they got a nurse who was excellent at getting it the first shot. I forget what her name was. The, of course, both trying to keep very tight.
Yeah.
Slapped my wrist a few times, and bam, I went through without a hitch. Of course, they did not use that IV when I started waking up, but that's another story.
Yeah.
And I just remember fading in and out of consciousness just due to being naturally tired and everything. By like 1 or so, they told me it was time. And I said, okay, fine. One less bathroom trip. Um, and then my last weigh-in pre-transplant, which was 88 pounds,
Wow.
which I know it sounds really tiny, but keep in mind I'm tiny, so it wasn't like
Oh, yeah.
it,
Yeah.
right,
You're already pretty small because
right,
you're
right. It was small, but it wasn't like scary small.
yeah.
And I remember they had me in a wheelchair. They pushed me down to the 4th floor, which is where the ORs were located. Um, and because we had that bag with us, and my dad had tossed in the van and everything, we we had our camera with us. And Dad asked if you know, Dad asked if someone could take pictures, a couple of pictures of us, just in case.
Yeah.
And I was the only one smiling because I was just that ready for it.
Yeah.
By that time, I was sick and tired of being sick and tired.
Yeah.
And also, I had what I feel was an advantage, and it's that I, because the internet was so new, I didn't have access to transplant data.
Yeah. You didn't
So I
know.
wasn't overwhelmed with numbers, statistics. So the only expectations I had were my own,
Yeah.
which are apparently kind of high.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I remember when they started separating me from my parents and everything, I still remember looking over my shoulders, waving bye guys and everything. See you in a few hours, like it was like literally the last I said to them. See you in a few hours. I remember they had me this little stool, a step stool to get on and lay down. They started to strap me, lowered my gown to past my shoulders, had me breathe in a mask, start counting until backwards, starting at 100. I didn't even get to 95.
Yeah.
I was out that fast. Um, they left me in at 1:30, and they left me out at noon.
Oh, wow. That's a long time. That's a long time.
Yeah, well, from what I understand, they would always call my parents with an update going, now we're doing this, now we're doing
Yeah.
that, now we're doing, X, Y, Z.
Yeah.
Uh, it's probably different now.
Yeah. No, I don't think so. Because when I had mine, well, it's been 4 years now, but they did the same thing. I remember my husband was, posting on Facebook, on my Facebook page, updates so all my people could see, and when I look back at it, he's like, "They just said that they got the left lung in, and now they're working on the right lung, and or they just took her back," or whatever, so I think it's the same thing, they update them.
Yep. And in my case and everything, they did what is referred to as an in block transplant, meaning that they put the organs in simultaneously.
Oh, okay.
So they put the
Alright.
heart and lungs in all together. In my case, I got the whole package from my donor, heart and both lungs, because
Yeah.
originally I was put on the list for heart and one lung.
Okay.
But because of how young my donor was, I got everything.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Yep. I was the first missing part along of 96.
Oh, you
Chris
were?
Lewis.
Oh, wow.
I was the first one of 96. I was the only female within my age bracket of 96.
Really?
I love looking at, little transplant data and
Yeah.
everything.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Um, so I know that there were 39 heart and lung transplants done in the US back in 96. Out of those 39, there were 4 within my age group. 2 in California, 2 in Missouri.
Okay.
Mine was in June of 96, and my friend Eric, which has passed away, his transplant was exactly 12 weeks after mine.
Oh, okay.
Um, he was number 10, I was number 9. Um, and he passed away, like I said, a while ago. I have no idea if the other 2 recipients in California are still alive. I would love to find out if they are.
Yeah.
That would be so cool.
Yeah. Have you tried to do you know their names and stuff? Like, have you tried to find them or
Nothing. I don't
Oh,
know. I mean, all I know is that they got the transplants in California. I don't know if they got them in like Southern California, like UCLA or something like that, or if they got them at like San Francisco or Stanford, or I have no
yeah.
idea. So, but I would love to find out if they're still alive or not. And it would be kind of, I mean, I hope they are. If they're not, it would be kind of trippy. Like, oh, I'm the only one within my age bracket or what?
Yeah. Well, maybe
Like,
you'll find out after this podcast. Maybe they
maybe.
listen. I don't know. Maybe.
Maybe.
Okay. Well, that's pretty cool data. And you said, that you were the oldest pediatric, recipient
Mhm. I
with heart and
might be
lungs?
I might be well, no, I won't. Okay, my friend Allison, she might actually be the honest to goodness oldest. She is 35 years now with heart and lungs.
Oh, wow.
Um, but I might be kinda, like, up there
Yeah.
wise.
Yeah. Well,
Um,
that's I mean, 27 years you said, right? So, getting ready to be 28 in June?
no. This coming June will be 27 years.
Oh, okay.
So June 96.
That's pretty awesome.
I know.
That's pretty awesome. I mean, that's
It's
pretty
still
cool.
crazy, and I'm just like, oh my god. I mean, it's kind of like not Endgame, Infinity War. And I'm just like, I'm not just yet. Like,
Yeah. Wow. Okay. So, all right. So you had your transplant, um, and you're done with the surgery and you wake up. How was everything afterwards?
I was actually in a medically induced coma the first 48, 60 hours.
Wow. Why?
So I
Do
don't
you know
remember
why?
anything really.
Yeah.
Um, and my parents took pictures of me during that time frame. And I'm like, I'm so glad I don't remember anything.
Yeah. Well, at least you still have those pictures, right? I asked my husband before, I was like, please take lots of pictures. And so I woke up. He didn't take any pictures. He took one picture after I woke up. I'm like, why didn't you take any pictures? And he's like, it felt weird. So I was like, okay.
And
So,
because what's funny is that when I first started waking up according to my parents it was 2 days later on Father's Day. It was like 9 in the morning, and my doctors had, like, just taken me off of the ventilator and respirator, and I'm trying to breathe, and I'm, like, just trying to get something out, and the nurses are, like, raving and everything, going, "She looks great, she looks so wonderful, she looks fantastic." My mom's like, "Yeah, right, she looks terrible." And I was trying to talk, apparently, trying to say something and everything. They tried to read my lips, not gonna happen.
yeah.
They tried to put their ear, like, directly over my mouth. They, they might as well let them put their ears to my foot. Could not hear me?
Hmm.
So out of frustration, I apparently finger spelled, "I'm hungry." And once they finally realized what I was saying, they're like, "Oh, no, sorry, can't have anything until Tuesday." And I apparently just bugged them so much and everything. They're like, "All right, fine." Because breakfast really was wrapping up and everything, and they gave me a pancake expecting me to regurgitate it. I kept that thing down. The
Well,
nurses were shocked
yeah,
because that meant that my kidneys were not affected or anything. And everything was looking fine. They're like, okay, I'll give her a second one, see what happens. Give me another pancake. Kept that sucker down.
yeah.
By that night, I was having dinner. I don't remember it, but that's what happened.
That's
Second thing I asked for was something to drink. I don't remember this. The third thing I asked for, I do remember it. I do remember it. I was, and somehow my dad figured out what I was saying, just by my gestures and everything, that I was holding someone. My dad goes, there. That's what I wanted, was my teddy bear.
did they give you one?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 'cause I had one already, like, with me and everything, so I probably just grabbed it from the apartment,
Oh,
and
okay. Yeah.
that was a big help because there were times where, I was just in pain and I would just hold it, like, real tight.
Yeah.
And I mean, I remember when the nurses took the bandage off my skull and everything, and they're like, "It looks fantastic, it looks wonderful," and I looked down and I started screaming. As you can imagine,
Yeah.
so loud that they had to knock me out and to shut me up.
You were probably like surprised. I mean, you're probably like
I was just probably
shocked.
like
Yeah.
traumatized.
Yeah.
I mean, I have no idea what I was going to expect or anything, but I'm like, what the heck? And on top of that, my scar is keloid, so
Yeah.
it
Wow.
doesn't help.
Yeah. So how long did it take for you to get out of the hospital and get back home?
I was only in the hospital for like 13 days.
Oh, that's pretty good.
Okay, how about you?
Well, I was in there for 11, but I only had one organ, you know. I just
I
had
was gonna
lungs. You
say,
had two you had two organs. So that's pretty good. Yeah.
yeah,
Wow. So after you get out of the hospital, like how long does it take for you to recover enough to go back to Florida?
I was actually doing so well that they gave us the green light to go home a month early, just
Oh,
as long as I
nice.
came back like a couple of weeks later
Yeah.
to finish up my 3-month evaluation. I'm like, okay, good. So I was actually good to be able to go back and like start school on the first day. So yeah, I mean, and they had me come back every, well, it might be the same. I don't know what it is, but like every 3 months during the first year, then every 6 months during the second year, then once a year.
Yeah.
Then when I was 21, almost 22, they're like, you're an adult. You're doing so well. You might want to start going to your local transplant center. So that's what I've been doing ever since.
Yeah. Well, that's pretty good. I mean, I'm 4 years out. I barely just graduated to every 6 months. So,
Oh, wow.
and I think they only gave me every 6 months because I ended up moving. So my transplant center's in Houston. I moved to El Paso. So I
Okay.
think I was on every 3 months before that
Oh,
forever.
wow.
So I'll be happy when I get to once a year, which I think I'll be fine with once a year now, but I'm not gonna argue. Well, that's great that you it didn't take so long to recover. So,
No, I didn't. I mean, compared to others, my recovery was very, very smooth.
yeah,
To the point where it actually like scared my doctors, and they were like almost on the edge of their seats, like, why isn't something going wrong? Something should be going wrong.
yeah,
Why isn't it happening? Like,
yeah,
because issues apparently were common, post-op and all that, then not.
yeah. Now you're 27 years later. I mean, have you had any, like, setbacks or complications that were major in between then and now?
Yeah, 3 months shy of my 10 year, I was diagnosed with a rejection in my lungs.
Okay.
My dad was shocked. He's like, "It can still happen?"
Yeah,
Uh, they gave me a big blast of steroids, which unfortunately kind of threw my body for a loop, and I was just got diagnosed with diabetes. Yay.
Mhm.
Um,
Well, that's good. It took 10 years. Usually it happens right away. Diabetes with
no, it's
prednisone. Yeah.
no, no, because what they did is that they had me go from 5 milligrams of prednisone to 40.
Oh, wow.
And on top of that, a big blast of sodium medrol
Oh, yeah.
for only 3 days.
Yeah.
You put that cocktail combination together in a tiny little body,
Yeah.
it's gonna throw your system out of whack.
Mhm.
And I ended up getting diagnosed with diabetes 2 years later.
Yeah.
Yay. So that did happen. And then actually just this past October, I started noticing like I had this wheezing sound whenever I would breathe, like off and on.
Mhm.
Going, that's not normal. And just because of everything I've been through and everything, I know when something is like more off than usual. Just because
Yeah.
of everything we've been through, we know our bodies that well.
Right.
In January, during my annual and everything, I brought it up to Transplant. They're like, okay, let's get a CT scan scheduled and check things out. So I had the CT scan done, got the results. Before they even called me with the results and everything, I'm going, that doesn't look right. Oh, it turns out there was stuff in my left lung, which didn't know what it was. Let's schedule you for a bronch. Here's the thing. Last bronch I had was in March of '06, right before I
Mhm.
was diagnosed with rejection. The doctor just, the doctor at the time did such a poor job of it that it just traumatized the living hell out of me.
Oh, wow.
I mean, simply put, okay, here's what happened. I remember telling them right before and everything, I get sick with with sedatives and everything. Gave me something beforehand to lessen the nausea.
Mhm.
They didn't do that. In 2006, they had me breathe in lidocaine through my mouth to try to numb it.
Yeah.
That was it. Then they had me lay down, just put a towel over my eyes. So I'm awake. And in my head, I am freaking out, as you can imagine.
Yeah.
And they start doing the tube and everything, and they put the tube down my throat and everything for the bronch. Oh, great, it's doing great, you're doing great, Kim, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, my throat realizes there's something in there that shouldn't be.
Mhm.
And I start choking and gagging so much they had to pull it out. And I just start like vomiting, almost like The Exorcist.
Yeah.
And when I was done with that moment, my doctor asked jokingly and everything, like, what did you eat? I go, nothing. Then I pass out. When I wake up, it's now night. And I see my parents overhead. And just by the looks on their faces and everything, I'm like, oh shit. Because
Yeah.
I knew something had gone wrong. So this past January, when I was told that I had to be romped again, I'm like, oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. I'm like, really like not happy. So I talked to my coordinator and everything, I left her a message. She sat down and everything. She goes, okay, what happened the last time? And I broke it down for her. She assured me it wasn't going to happen. And I could tell by her tone that she was pissed because just based on what the previous doctor had done.
Mhm.
This bronch I had in February, I didn't get sick.
Yeah.
And it went fantastically and everything. They were great. I'm like, oh, thank God. Well, this bronch, it turns out my airways were severely narrowed / practically closed in my lower left lung. Oh, that might explain some things.
Yeah.
So they said, okay, let's schedule another bronch a week from today to give you steroids or a stent. I said, okay, fine. That went great. They gave me steroids. Then I had to have another bronch just a few weeks ago.
Oh,
because
no.
we had a follow up and everything, like, okay, to see if the steroids worked and everything. My lung function went up marginally, but not enough. So like,
Yeah.
okay, we're gonna do something else. They gave me this block. Everything was fine. They did the balloon this time. As of right now, I don't have anything scheduled, so yay.
That's good. Yeah.
Um, so yeah, those are like the main health issues that I've had, like transplant wise, since then.
Yeah. That's I mean, those are terrible things, but that's pretty good.
Yes.
27 years, you haven't had a whole lot
And
to deal with.
27, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Wow. Okay. And how are you feeling? I'm assuming you're feeling great, right?
I'm doing okay. I'm doing okay. I mean, it's summer in Florida, which, living in
Yeah.
Texas, I'm sure you understand when I'm going. It's
Yeah.
crazy, insane hot. And I'm like, I hate this
Yeah.
because for me, I have no idea what it's like for you, but for me, this weather, like from my being outside and everything, it takes me back to pre-transplant breathing.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
it's just, yeah, and it just hits you like a sledgehammer.
Yeah. Well, I'm from the desert. I moved to Houston from Albuquerque, New Mexico, which was dry and hot, and the altitude was higher. And so moving to Houston would help my breathing pre-transplant, and then I got my transplant. And of course it was miserable with the humidity and stuff, but I didn't notice a huge effect with when it was super humid, just, that it was just so hot and I was miserable. So now that I moved back to El Paso, which is still Texas, but it's, the desert again, it's dry and the
Right,
and the altitude's higher. I find myself having a little bit more of a struggle. I don't struggle to breathe, but I can tell the difference, because of the altitude only. But I certainly like the
right,
dry heat better than the wet, humid, gross heat in Houston.
right,
So I don't
right,
miss the
right,
Houston weather, that's for sure.
right, because the transplant games, have you ever been? I think you
Oh
have.
yeah. I went this last year.
So
Yeah,
did
to
I.
San Diego. You did?
Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. Are you gonna go next year? In
Oh, yeah.
humid, hot Birmingham, Alabama?
Green, Alabama.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm actually co-manager of Team Florida, so
Oh, okay. Awesome. Yeah, I was there. We had a booth there. So I had this podcast was there and my foundation was there too.
oh
So
my gosh. I don't know
yeah.
if I went sorry, just because it was like I don't know whether it's approaching and everything, but this was like way more condensed
Yeah.
compared to past games.
Oh, see, I don't know because I that's the first one I've been to. So I didn't
Yeah,
know
this was definitely
before.
more subdued,
Oh,
which
really?
makes sense.
Yeah.
With the past games.
Yeah.
I've been watching games since 2002.
Wow. I love the games. Like that changed my life. I can't wait to
Oh
go.
yeah, definitely. I mean, I do think that they've helped me like recover in a way
Yeah.
because one of the weird it, disadvantages of getting the transplant when I did is that I didn't have social media to try to find other
Oh
recipients
yeah.
and through the same stuff that I'd been through.
Hmm.
So once I went back to Florida, my friends went back to their states and everything. There was nobody that I could talk to, like around my age, who had been through the same stuff that I've been through. So I was very much, I don't want to say just straight up like alone, but
Yeah.
other people don't understand what you've been through.
Yeah.
Um, they don't understand what your body has been through, which is a lot.
Yeah.
So going to the games and everything is like, oh wait, you had this transplant too. Or say I find somebody who got the transplant in, St. Louis as well, and everything like, oh, and that's where I got mine, or
Yeah.
whatever. And there are other recipients who, like I said, were further out than I am. Like, awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, I loved it. I because now it's so much easier with social media. You can connect with so many different people. And I'm
Yep.
sure back then that was like the place that you went to find your people.
Yeah.
So and it's still like that. Like I met so many people at the transplant games. It was incredible.
Yep. But yeah, I mean, it's 27 years. My sister just had a baby back in February. So I'm a first
Okay.
time auntie.
Yeah. That must feel
And
nice.
oh my goodness, my nephew is the cutest thing.
Uh-huh.
Of course, I'm super biased.
Yeah, of course, but I'm sure he is.
Oh
Was
my goodness. At least he's when my sister told us last summer and that she was pregnant and everything, I just started crying. I was just so happy.
yeah,
And, he just gave me more motivation to, keep on going and
yeah,
that sort of thing.
yeah,
So, I just love that little nugget. I just love seeing him learn new things and whatnot. Like, he just learned how to roll over. My sister sent us the video, and I'm like, way to go, Jackson! Like,
yeah. That's awesome. That's great.
yeah. So,
Well, I'm really glad that you're doing so well and that it's been so long. I mean, just going 20 plus years is so inspirational. I love talking to you guys because it inspires me. I feel like, well, maybe I can make it 20 plus years. So
one day at a time. Yeah.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah. Just one of those things where, like, you just listen to your body. If something seems kind of, wonky and everything, I'm like, even if someone else says, "Oh, you're fine," like, no, I gotta pay attention to this. I
yeah,
gotta
for sure. Well, I have one more question for you.
sure.
And sometimes it's a difficult question to answer, but sometimes it's not. But the question is, if you had any piece of advice to give somebody who's pre-transplant that you wish you had known before your transplant, what would that be?
Okay, that's funny you say that because my pulmonologist who actually lives in Houston,
Oh,
um, I, I mean, he works in the children's hospital, but I don't know if you,
probably not. I probably don't know him.
um, he's now retired, he's now writing a book, and he asked for, my advice and everything. So, but mine was kind of from the perspective of somebody who was younger, just because that was the age that I was.
Yeah,
For the patients, one of them is, it's going to sound so simple, but, take your meds. And
yeah,
I can't stress that enough. I've lost too many friends to their non-compliance, and that frustrates me to no end. Another one, and I think this one can kind of go to everybody, is don't think you can use your transplant card and get away with it for like everything or anything. And what I mean when I say that is like, don't think you can use it to like excuse this behavior or that or whatever. Like, no. And there are three reasons why. One, everyone has a story that'll break your heart. The average Joe or John Doe on the street will not give a rat's behind about your sob story. It's harsh, but it's true.
hmm
And three, there's always going to be someone who can outstory you, even within the transplant community. Um, don't compare your recovery to someone else's. Whether it's a difficult recuperation or a smooth ride, don't beat yourself up, but also don't be cocky.
yeah,
Also figure out who you are without chronic illness slash transplant. Figure out your likes and dislikes that have nothing to do with it.
right.
And I know that's hard, but you've got to figure out some way to have it be part of your life, but not every itty bitty little bitty bit. And then finally, listen to your gut. You might be at a transplant center that everybody raves about and your doctor or whatever, but if you don't have a good vibe about this person, speak up.
Yeah,
Thankfully I didn't experience this with my original center, but I'm just adding it because
yeah,
it's important.
yeah,
Just for the parents, you say they about your kids. Be present. Don't forget about them. If they have a school play or if they're in a soccer game or something, be present.
yeah,
Physically, emotionally, everything.
yeah,
I also don't allow your sick kid or teen to be the center of your lives. Yes, they're sick and need your attention, but don't ignore the others.
yeah,
That is super important, and if you can bring your other children, do it. so that they can see firsthand, oh, they're not just having fun and games. They're getting blood work. They're getting physical therapy. They're getting this done or whatever. So they can understand, like, oh, this isn't just something where they're like going somewhere fun.
Yeah.
And also, don't forget about your partner. And this can go for like anybody, Like,
Yeah.
remember what bonded you in the first place.
Yeah.
And then also give yourself permission to take breaks. It sounds so simple, but so. And I know I just gave a lot.
No, it's all great advice. All of it. I love it.
Just based on my 25 plus years of insight and
Well,
experience from what I've
you're the
seen.
one to give it. That's for sure.
I mean, thankfully, my parents never forgot that they had 2 other children.
Yeah.
And my sisters got to see firsthand, like, oh, this is why. My first sister is now an RN.
Oh, nice.
And I mean, one of the things that actually kind of pushed her to pursue that is because she has a perspective that most people wouldn't have. And my
Yeah.
younger sister is actually a high school science teacher,
Uh-huh.
which is kind of funny to me because I'm like, science was not my best subject in school growing up.
Me neither.
English and history and everything, those are my subjects in school growing up when I was
Yeah. Yeah, you guys are related, but you're certainly different. That's for sure. Yeah. Well, that's great advice. I appreciate that, and like I said, I'm so happy that you're doing so well, and I think that you're super inspirational with your 27 years. So that's great, and I thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with
Of
me and
course,
my
yeah.
listeners, and I know that they're all going to be inspired by your story too. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, you have a great weekend,
You
and
too.
I'll talk to you soon, and I'm sure I'll see you next year at the games.
Thank you for listening to the Pre to Post Transplant podcast. Please be sure to subscribe to the podcast and follow us on Facebook. Oh, and if you have not signed up to be an organ donor, please visit www.organdonor.gov and register today. You too can save lives.